may proceed.
Please support. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury by giving us your name?
Jenna Lauer,
Okay, and could you spell your last name?
Lauer.
Ms. Lauer, it's a little confusing because you've got two microphones in front of you, but that's the one you need to use. The other one that appears bigger is actually not the one.
Okay.
What do you do for a living, ma'am?
Real estate.
Okay. And could you briefly tell us about your educational background?
I have a master's degree in business.
Okay. Are you married, ma'am?
Yes.
And is your husband's first name Jeremy?
Yes.
How long have you been married?
A little over a year.
Okay. Do you have any kids?
No.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you for your current address, but do you and your husband live in Seminole County at this time?
Yes.
Okay. I want to draw your attention back to February of last year, 2012. At that time, were you living at the Retreat at Twin Lakes Townhomes in Sanford, Seminole County, Florida?
Yes.
And was your address at that time 1211 Twin Trees Lane?
Yes.
Is that a townhome?
Yes.
Okay. The jury's already had witnesses testify about the townhomes, but are they two-story?
Yes.
And are the bedrooms upstairs?
Yes.
Okay. You keep breaking up, and I think it's just the way the microphone is set up.
Okay.
Maybe the deputy can adjust it. Okay. Sorry, let me make sure everybody heard you. The bedrooms are upstairs?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's a lot better. And are you in a corner, I guess the corner townhome of a building?
Yes.
Okay. And there are what, like 5 or 6 townhomes in that building, or are there more, do you know?
There's either 5 or 6, I'm not sure.
Okay. Could you describe briefly the layout? Are living quarters downstairs?
Yeah, when you walk in, the front door, the kitchen's on the left, and then the dining room and living room are in the back.
Okay. So is the living room facing the back courtyard or backyard, I guess?
Yes.
Is there a sliding glass door that lets you out into the backyard or back courtyard?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a porch in the back?
Yes.
Okay. The porch that you have, is it enclosed?
Yes.
And how is it enclosed?
Screen enclosure.
Okay. I know we're talking back in February, where you were living there back in February. It's screened in. How is it screened in? Just regular screens, or is it kind of glass screen, or?
It's just regular screen.
Okay. Does it have a regular screen door too?
Yes.
Okay. In addition to the screen patio, do you have any kind of blinds on the screen itself or on the porch, I guess, if I'm asking right?
Yes, we put in some like bamboo blinds over them.
Okay. And the day I'm going to talk about is February 26, 2012. That's Sunday. This porch that you had, the bamboo blinds, were they down, do you recall, or up, or how were they?
Down.
Okay. And down would mean what? I think I know what you mean, but we got to make sure the jury follows.
All the way down?
Okay, so all the way down to the floor?
Yeah, there's maybe a foot gap at the bottom that you can see out of.
Okay. Is there kind of, at the bottom part of the porch, is there kind of like a knee wall or something, or?
Yeah, it's probably about 1.5 feet high.
And then from there up it's screened?
It's screened for about 1 foot, and then the blinds start.
Okay. So the blinds cover the majority of the screen porch, I guess?
Right.
Okay. And going back to February 26, 2012, how long had you lived at that residence approximately?
About 3 years.
Okay. Now, obviously Sunday the 26th of 2012, were you home that evening?
Yes.
Okay. And was your husband also home? Was Jeremy also home?
Yes.
Okay. At around 7 p.m., a little after, what were you and your husband doing that evening?
Just watching TV in the living room.
Okay. And if you could just briefly describe the living room in terms of couches, recliners, what were you and your husband positioned in relation to the TV?
We have a couch and a love seat, and the couch faces the TV, the love seat faces the sliding glass door.
Okay. So if I were looking out into the backyard or the courtyard from your sliding glass door, if I were looking out, the TV would be to the left or to the right?
To the right.
Okay. And is there more than one couch or more than one sofa?
Well, there's a sofa and a love seat.
Okay. Do you recall where you were and where your husband were that evening?
I was on the love seat facing the sliding glass door,
Okay.
and Jeremy was on the couch.
Okay. So he would have been on the opposite, I guess, or not, is it an angle, I guess, or?
They're perpendicular.
Okay. You mentioned watching TV. Do you recall what you were watching?
Celebrity Apprentice.
Okay. And was that a recorded program or was it playing live at that time?
It was recorded.
Okay. How would you describe the volume on your TV when you and your husband were watching TV that evening?
It was pretty loud. I mean, where we normally keep it, but
All right. Now, that evening, do you recall the weather conditions?
yes, it was raining.
Okay. As a result of it being raining and being February, do you recall whether you had your sliding glass door, whether it was open or whether it was closed?
It was open. We had it all the way open.
Okay. So in terms of the courtyard or the backyard, I'm going to call it, is there another name that you guys describe what you call that?
In the backyard.
Okay. The backyard, your view of the backyard and your husband's view on your vantage point from the couch and the love seat, are you able to see directly into the backyard or is your view obstructed?
It's not obstructed.
Okay, so are the blinds down is what I'm saying that evening? Were they down?
Yes.
Were you able to see through the blinds or what? Describe if you could the
During the
blinds.
day, I can see all the way through. At night, you cannot see past the blinds.
Okay, so your view is obstructed by the blinds, I guess is what I'm trying
At
to
night, yes.
Yes. Okay. The sliding glass door was open, but you had, I guess, was there a breeze coming in or at all, or?
No.
Okay. And when you say it was raining that evening, was it like at around 7 o'clock, do you recall if it was pouring rain or just intermittent or?
It was a pretty steady paced rain for most of the day. That's why we had the door open. It was relaxing.
Okay. At some point that evening, close to 7 o'clock, 7:05, 7:10, around that time, did something draw your attention outside?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you could, as best you can describe, what first drew your attention outside?
I just heard voices.
Okay. The voices that you first heard, your TV was on?
Yes.
When you heard it? The volume was on?
Yes.
When you first heard the noises, could you tell it was outside?
Yes.
Could you tell whether it was outside in the backyard or the front yard or somewhere else?
I could tell it was the backyard.
Okay. And the voices that you heard, were you able to make out any words from those voices?
No.
Okay. In relation to your backyard, specifically your porch, or let's get more specific, your living room, could you tell from what direction they were coming, or could you just tell they were outside somewhere?
I could tell they were coming from the left of where I was sitting.
Okay. And would that be, if you're looking out your porch, if I'm looking right out, your porch is right there, would they be to the left, are you talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Could you tell how far away they were?
No, people walk their dogs in that area a lot, and it sounded like that area where I always hear them throwing out their trash and stuff, so.
Okay. And you mentioned words, or how would you describe what was going on? You could hear some noises. You could not make out any words?
Right, it just sounded like loud talking.
Okay. Could you tell whether at that point, whether there was one individual, 2, 3, 4, could you tell how many?
No.
Okay. The voices, was it just like voices just going, or was there a gap in between? In other words, was there silence, or how would you describe that?
I keep calling it like a three-part exchange. Like one person said something, then another. So.
But could you make out any of it? Who said what?
No.
Okay. Could you tell there was definitely two persons, or did you just assume that?
I assumed it by the way they were speaking,
Okay.
because it just sounded like one was answering the other.
Okay. But in terms of the tone of the voices, could you tell whether one was louder than the other, or were they the same, or?
It sounded about the same volume.
Okay. And would you describe the tone as flustered as opposed to confrontational?
Yeah, I would say more flustered.
Now, in terms of the voices that you first heard out there, when you heard them, did you do something and your husband do something in relation to your TV?
I muted the TV as soon as I heard the voices.
So you had control of the remote versus your husband?
Yes.
Okay. So you muted the TV, and what happened then?
Immediately after the voices and me muting the TV, I just heard them, whoever was out there, start scuffling around. I keep saying scuffling, so it sounded like sneakers on pavement and grass.
Okay. There's been, or let me ask you this. When you say grass, what do you mean by that? It's like movement on the grass, or I can't answer, I can't tell you what to say.
Like if
What do you
someone
mean?
was running on the pavement and on the grass,
Okay.
it sounded like that.
Okay. And on the grass and on the pavement, is there like a walkway back there?
Yeah, there's a sidewalk right next to the grass. So it's like you were playing basketball right there or something, and you're just like moving around on the pavement in the grass.
At that point, could you tell whether there was one or two individuals?
I couldn't tell how many.
Okay. And you heard what appeared to you to be like a running? Is that how you described it?
No, I describe it as scuffling.
Scuffling, excuse me, okay.
Right.
And the scuffling, in terms of where it was it both pavement and grass, or just one, or can you tell the difference?
It was a combination of the both.
Okay. Is that the first time you've ever heard noises outside?
No,
That residence?
no.
Okay. Was it common to hear noises outside, or was that a first time?
No, like I said, people walk their dogs back there all the time, but not normally in the rain, so that was uncommon.
Okay. In terms of the second series of noises that you heard, if I understand it correctly, you heard some noises that drew your first attention to it. You couldn't make out what was being said. Is that correct?
Right.
And then how long after that did you hear additional noises, the second round of noises that we're talking about?
It was immediate after I muted the TV.
Okay. Was there any gap at all?
No.
Okay. So it was just a continuation?
Yes.
Okay. How long did those noises keep going?
I honestly couldn't say.
Okay. You described it as a scuffle. Could you at that time, other than hearing scuffle in grass and concrete, could you hear anything else? Any exchange of words or any at that time?
No, after the scuffling, it gradually went into like a grunting noise.
Okay. All right. And when you say scuffling, were you able to actually hear somebody hitting somebody, or more just, tell me how you described it?
It sounded more like if two people were rolling around. I mean, at first, it sounded like maybe people were standing up, because
Okay.
I could hear sneakers on pavement. And then after that, it kind of just sounded like wrestling, because at one point, I felt like they were about to come through the screen. I mean, it sounded like it kept getting closer and closer.
Okay. So the movement of that was closer and closer to your residence? Or
Yes.
the back of your residence?
Right.
Okay. And you mentioned rolling or doing something on the ground on the grass, is that correct?
That's how it sounded.
Okay. And I gather, just to get to the point about this subject, did you at any time see anything going on outside?
No.
And it's your knowledge that your husband see anything going outside?
No, he did not.
So it is the recount you're giving us of what occurred there, just basically what you heard as opposed to what you saw?
Only on what I heard.
You mentioned a sound, did you say like something besides the scuffling or movement on the grass? What else did you hear at that time? Any kind of grunting or something?
Yeah, it turned into a grunting, and then it gradually turned into yelping.
Okay. And are you sure whether the grunting started at the beginning when you heard the scuffling, or soon thereafter? Are you able to time it in terms of when it happened?
I couldn't give you a time, but it was soon thereafter the scuffling.
Okay. At some point, was there a decision made by you or your husband to call 911?
Yes.
And do you recall, in relation to when you first heard the first noise until you made a decision to call 911, how much time had expired?
I couldn't say. I mean, we decided to call 911 as soon as we heard the scuffling noises.
Okay.
So
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I think you're trying to get to if we've ever tried to time it out or figure out. So from the time that I heard the noises that made me mute the TV to the time that I think my call actually got picked up from 911, I believe is about 30 seconds.
Okay. And what you and your husband did at a later date is just kind of recounted your minds and try to, well...
Like reenact it.
All right. But at the time, you were just estimate as to how long you took from one time to the other? You understand my question? My question is, how long after did you reenact it, I guess?
I mean, it was a while.
Okay. And were you going just based on what your husband and you remember in terms of occurring?
Yes.
In terms of coming up with about the 30 seconds?
Yes.
Okay. I guess my question, and I've been inartful in asking this, you did not look at a watch when it started to say, okay, it took 20 seconds or 30 seconds. You weren't looking at a clock or as it was going on?
No.
Okay. Your focus was on calling 911?
Yes.
Okay. Did you or your husband attempt to call 911, or did you do it at the same time, or how did that occur?
He tried to call first, but his phone had locked up on him, so I picked up my phone and called.
Okay. You mentioned some kind of noise. Were you able to make out any words at that point?
Which point?
At the point where you're getting ready to call 911, or at this point, are you able to make out any words at this point?
At the point where I'm dialing 911, it's what I describe as yelps. It wasn't actual words that I could make out yet.
Right.
But it was definitely yelling noises.
Okay. So, if I understood correctly, you are the one that actually calls 911?
Yes.
And you use a cell phone to call 911?
Yes.
Were you able to get in contact with the operator?
Yes.
And were you able to speak to her?
Yes.
Okay. When you're calling 911 and you're actually using your cell phone, where in your residence are you when you're calling 911?
I got up off of my couch and kind of went over to where the stairs are
Okay.
to call over there.
Right. Now, are there stairs closer to your sliding door porch, or are they closer to the front door of your residence?
They're actually like on the same level, just down some.
Right. And I've been there, so I know, but I want to try to get to the jury to understand where you're headed. Are you headed more away from the sliding door, or are you headed towards the sliding door?
It's the same distance from the sliding door, just to the
At an
side.
angle? To the side? Okay. And why did you proceed to the stairs? Were you going to plan to go upstairs?
No, I just didn't want them to hear me. I didn't know if it was just kids fooling around or what, so I didn't want them to hear me snitching on them and calling the police.
So you were trying to become less obvious so that somebody could hear you. You were trying to move away, I guess, where somebody outside would be able to hear you?
Where they would not be able to hear me.
I'm sorry, where they would not be able to hear you.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what your husband was doing at that time?
He had gone into the kitchen. I think at that point we were kind of sure that someone was in danger or needed help, and I don't know if he was trying to find maybe a knife or something to go. The way our house is set up, our porch, there's 3 different locks on the screen and everything. It would be too hard to go out the back and not be like on top of them. So he was going to get something and maybe go around the front to go see, but that didn't happen.
Okay. You were able to get through 911.
Yes.
Right, and you spoke to the operator. And as you're calling 911 and speaking to the operator, at some point do you actually hear a gunshot?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall in terms of when you made contact with the 911 operator to the time you heard a shot, and the jury will be able to hear it, but did you time it at any time to see how long it took, or how did it appear to you how long it took?
I didn't time it, and I don't know.
Okay. And as you're speaking to 911, are you still in the same position, or have you proceeded to the kitchen or any other part of the residence?
After I went over by the stairs to call, and as she was asking me questions and stuff, she asked if they were saying help, and at that point they were saying help. And Jeremy was in the kitchen, and I was trying to stop him from going out there because I didn't want him to get involved. And so I went into the kitchen to kind of stop him from doing what he was doing. And while we were both in there is when the gunshot went off.
So you were multitasking, you were trying to call and provide information to the operator, but also making sure your husband didn't go outside?
Right.
Okay. Now, at the whole time, do you have your phone, do you have it like on speaker, or do you have it like right next to your ear?
It's to my ear.
Okay. But are you still communicating with your husband, I gather?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay. I guess an obvious question might be, at any time, did you get the phone and go out like to the porch or even to the sliding door and put it out so that whoever was on the other side of the operator on 911 was able to hear it clear?
No.
Okay. Was your entire conversation that's recorded that we're going to play to the jury, you talking to the 911 operator with your phone to your ear?
Yes.
In terms of what you referred to as, I believe you used the word they yell, do you recall how many times those yells were?
I don't.
Okay. Do you remember any particular words that you were able to hear other than you said, I believe, yelp, and did you say another word?
The yelps turned to helps.
Okay, so you were able to make out the word help?
Yes.
Okay, do you recall how many times?
I don't.
Are you able to say, based on what you heard, whether it was one person, two people, three people out there yelling help?
It was one person yelling.
How can you say it's one person?
It just sounded like the same voice the whole time.
Okay. And could you tell whether it was a man or a woman?
It was a man.
Okay. Could you identify the person in terms of describing the person's voice? Who it is?
No.
Okay. Tell me if while you're hearing this help or cries for help, you believe one individual, whether you were still hearing, you described grass noises or scuffling going on.
I don't remember either way because I was answering questions and multitasking.
Okay. Did the noises stop at some point? The cries for help or the...
After the gunshot.
Okay. When you heard a gunshot, what did you do?
We kind of just ducked down to the ground in the kitchen and then tried to scurry our way upstairs. We just wanted to get away from the door and...
Sure. And when you say we, you're talking about your husband and you?
Yes.
At any time did your husband end up going outside?
No.
Okay. Did you and your husband make it upstairs?
Yes.
When you went upstairs, did you remain upstairs? I know at some point you went back down.
Right.
But I'm pointing at the time when this was going on, did you go out upstairs and look through the window at all?
No.
At any time in the conversation that you had with the 911 operator, did your husband get on the phone and also talk to the operator?
No.
It was just you exclusively?
Yes.
Okay. While you were talking to the 911 operator, did you hear, in addition to the voices you talk about, or the voice that yelled help, do you recall hearing anybody else out there?
I did hear my neighbor
Okay.
open his door.
All right. And is he your next door neighbor?
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of your residence, you're on the corner, would that be right next to you?
Yes.
Right. And is his name John Good?
Yes.
Okay. And when you said him open the door, you actually heard the door open?
I heard it open and I heard him. I know his voice, so.
Okay. And when you say you heard, are you talking about the sliding glass door open?
Yes.
Does he have an enclosed porch like you do, or is his porch just an open piece of pavement on the ground?
It's just open.
Okay. And do you recall whether Mr. Good said anything when he opened the door? Do you recall hearing him say anything?
He said something along the lines of, what the hell are you doing?
Okay. And when you heard Mr. Good say that, at that time, did you continue to hear voice or voices in addition to Mr. Good?
Yeah, the yelling for help continued.
Okay. Is there a light in your back porch?
Yes,
Do you recall that evening whether the light was on or off?
it was on.
And just to make sure, the light would have been inside the porch, or is there an outside light too?
It's inside.
Okay. So does that only illuminate the porch itself, or does it illuminate outside too?
Just the inside because the blinds prevent it from shining outside.
Your Honor, at this time, with the court's permission, we'd like to play the state's exhibit. I apologize. Ms. Lauer, you've had an opportunity to hear that 911 recording, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, no, Your Honor, thank you.
I apologize. And for the record, that's going to be, hold on, it is going to be State's Exhibit 158.
911, do you need police, fire, medical?
Maybe both. I'm not sure. There's just someone screaming outside.
Okay, what's the address that they're near?
1211 Twin Trees Lane.
Twin Trees Lane. Is this in the Twin Lakes homes in Sanford?
Yes.
Okay, and is it a male or female?
It sounds like a male.
And you don't know why?
I don't know why. I think they're yelling help, but I don't know. Just send someone quick. Say stop.
Okay. Does he look hurt?
I can't see him. I don't want to go out there. I don't know what's going on. So they're sending him.
So you think he's yelling help?
Yes.
All right, what is your phone number?
Just there's gunshots.
You just heard gunshots?
Yes.
How many?
There's one. Jeremy, get down. No, come here.
Is he no
Hey,
longer
come on.
yelling?
No one, I don't know. Jeremy, get in here now. Jeremy, get up here.
All right, is he right outside 1211 Twin Trees Lane?
Yeah, pretty much out the back, yeah.
Is he in front of it or behind that address?
He's behind my house.
Okay.
Just stay away from the windows.
I don't hear him yelling anymore. Do you hear anything?
No, I don't because I'm hiding upstairs. There was a gunshot right outside our house.
Good morning, sir.
I mean, you've obviously sent someone already, right?
Yes, it's in dispatch. What's your name and phone number?
My name is Jenna Lauer, and my phone number is 407-701-8991.
And how do you spell your last name?
Lauer.
L-A-U-E.
They don't indicate that.
Okay. All right, do you hear any vehicles leaving or anyone else? Do you hear anything right
There's
now?
people yelling out there, but I don't want to go down there, so.
Okay, multiple people are yelling now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, we do have officers on the way. Just call us back if you do hear or see anything else suspicious, like any vehicles leaving or anything like that, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye. 911, do you need...
That is your voice, and is that you talking to your husband at some point too, and the operator?
Yes.
Okay, and is that your husband speaking in the background?
Yes.
Okay. Is that what you recall hearing in terms of when you say voice or voices outside? Is that what you recall hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Now, at any time, did you hear anyone outside your residence saying, pardon my language, you're going to die tonight, motherfucker? Did you ever hear that?
No.
Did you ever hear anybody say, call the police as you're hearing the noises?
No.
In terms of the voices outside, I know we've got the recording. The only word you could make out is help, or did you make out any other word out there?
I believe help and help me.
Okay. Are those the only words you heard?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize. You heard something like a yelp, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay. Other than that, you didn't hear anything else out there?
Right.
At some point after you called 911, did you actually hear and at some point observe the police come out there to the residence?
I heard people out there, and then we waited a little while longer and saw lights and everything, so we knew the police were there.
Okay. And at some point, did you hear a person say, "I have a gun," or "Take my gun," something like that?
I did hear someone say something along the lines of, "I have a gun, take my gun."
Okay. And when you heard that, the person that uttered that, was that person just saying that? How would you describe how the person said that?
You know, like, just matter of fact, like, take my gun. So, you know.
And could you state, or you could identify who said that?
No.
Did you hear in the response to that person saying, "As a matter of fact, just take my gun"?
No.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you some photographs, and I know I'm going back to February of last year, the residents there at that time, and see if you can, thank you, Your Honor. First of all, do you recognize State's Exhibit 1? It's a Google Zoom aerial photograph of the retreat at Twin Lakes. You see that, State's Exhibit number 1?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to attempt as best I can to zoom in. Is your residence right here on the corner that I'm pointing to, right there?
Yes.
When I say your residence, I'm talking back in February of last year.
Right.
Okay. And your backyard would be right here? Is that correct?
Yes.
And is this what's referred to as a dog walk or walkway or something?
Yes.
And would this be referred to as a T maybe?
Yes.
Okay. Let me see back here. Sorry, I need some assistance. What I want to also go back to State's Exhibit 1 and blow it up a little different this time because I want to take in. In terms of back in February of 2012, when this was your residence, would this be the front right here of the residence?
Yes.
Okay. And is this a walkway that I'm pointing to right here with the arrow with the cursor that leads all the way and then comes down this way?
Yes.
Okay. So your house is right here at the corner?
Yes.
Okay. Ma'am, I'm going to show you now another photograph. Thank you. State's Exhibit number 3. Can you tell from that photograph your residence back in February of last year? Would it have been in the corner right there?
Yes.
Okay. And is this right here? Is this your back, the side right here of your house, and then the back porch area?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in terms of how dark or how bright it was out there that night, and I know you weren't looking outside, but would you agree that the conditions, or would you describe the conditions as this dark?
Or darker. That looks lit up to me.
Okay, that looks lit up because of the photograph, the light on the camera maybe?
Right.
Okay. State Exhibit 5, what is that? Do you recognize that photograph at all?
Yes, that's behind our house by the T intersection.
Okay. And is that the residence that would be across the courtyard or from your house? In other words, that's where the people across from you would be living?
Yes.
Okay. State Exhibit number 6, is this just, is your residence, the back of it, back in February of 2012, back here
Yes.
that I'm circling, is that the porch
Yes.
or part of the porch?
Uh-huh.
Okay. State Exhibit 33, what is that?
That's the front of our house.
Okay. And I gather this, I'm going to zoom up to a part of that. Is there an address in the front of that residence?
Yes,
And the address would be 1211 Twin Trees Lane?
yes,
I know it just says the number's 1211, right?
you're right.
Okay. And again, that would be the front of the residence where you used to live back in February 2012. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. I want to go back to State's Exhibit 1, and I want to zoom in again. That would be, am I pointing to the front of the residence right here?
Yes,
And so that address is visible from the street. If somebody were walking on right here, would be able to see the residence right there, right? The number on the street, on your address. Is that correct?
I guess it depends where they're at on the sidewalk, but yeah.
Right. I'm saying if they're walking right here, or if they're walking right here, they would be able to see, would they be able to see the address there?
I would object to the extent she's answered it. It would be asking her to speculate at this point.
Sustained.
Have you ever walked outside your residence?
Yes,
Have you ever walked towards your front of your house?
yes,
And in fact, is there a garage in the front of the house?
There
In
is.
the house, I'm sorry, in the townhouse. Inside?
yes,
And is there a place to park cars also?
yes,
And is there a street there that I'm pointing to right here? I'm sorry, let me point with the cursor, right here?
yes,
Okay. And if one were to walk this, have you ever walked before like this and been able to see the front of your residence?
yeah. And I get where you're going with this, but there's a truck there, that's my husband's truck. So, and there's a bush by the front. So depending on where I'm at on the sidewalk would depend on if I could see that
But the numbers are visible from the sidewalk.
in certain areas of the sidewalk.
Correct. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. By the way, in the entire Retreat of Twin Lakes, there's only 3 streets, correct?
right,
There's one that circles the whole Retreat of Twin Lakes, and then there's your street, and then there's another street, correct?
right,
And your street, in fact, is the street that you actually go into if you're going in the front, Twin Trees, you go in right there, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. Now, ma'am, sir, I'm sorry, ma'am, State's Exhibit 36. Do you recognize that there?
Yes,
Okay, and what is that?
the side of my house.
Okay, and is this leading into the courtyard or backyard?
Yes, and in that picture you can see what I'm saying about the bush.
Right here?
Yeah, and the numbers.
Okay. So you're saying the numbers aren't visible from the street there?
I'm saying if I was about 2 feet farther, I wouldn't be able to see the numbers.
Okay, all right. What about you? State's Exhibit 37, do you recognize that, ma'am?
Yes,
And what does that show?
the back side of my house.
Okay. And I know these are daytime photographs, correct?
Right,
Okay. State's Exhibit 39, what does that photograph show?
the back of my house.
Okay. And that would be the enclosed porch?
Yes,
Okay. And would this also show the walkway and then leading up to the front of your house, am I pointing to?
yes,
Okay. Going back out to the street?
right.
Okay. Ma'am, if I may approach the witness, Your Honor, and I'm sorry, I'm through with the lights. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, I'm going to refer you back to February of last year. State's Exhibit 139, were you living at 1211 Twin Tree Lane?
Yes,
Okay. And if I put a sticker where you lived back in February of last year, is that the correct place?
yes,
Okay. And is this the area, in other words, where you said your husband parked and then this is a walkway this way?
yes.
Is that what we made reference to or you talked about?
Yes,
Okay. want to go back, ma'am, to State's Exhibit 1, and I apologize if the court may assist us. Thank you, Your Honor. Again, this is the aerial view. You recognize that in terms
Yes.
of twin? And your residence would be right here, is that correct?
Yes,
And this is Twin Tree Lane coming all the way, this would be the front entrance, is that correct?
yes,
Okay, so if one were to come in and retreat at Twin Lakes in the front entrance, this would be Twin Tree would be all the way here.
I'm not sure if that front entrance is Retreat View, or if
Oh.
it starts as Twin Trees. I don't
Okay,
know.
okay, but this Retreat View Circle is all the way around, am I doing this right?
Right,
This goes all the way around.
yes,
That's just, the whole name doesn't change, it's the whole circle is Retreat View Circle, correct?
right,
And then Twin Tree either starts right here at the front or starts right here, correct?
right, yes,
And it goes all the way through and goes out to the back entrance, correct?
yes,
Is this, I apologize, is this the back entrance right here that I'm pointing to?
yes,
Okay. Now, when you lived back in February 2012 between the Twin Lakes, you were a member of the HOA,
yes,
Homeowners Association, correct?
yes,
All right. And I think the third street is actually this one right here, correct?
yes,
Okay, so there's only really 3 streets in the whole neighborhood.
right.
Okay, Your Honor, I'm through with the lights. Thank you very much. As a result of back in February 2012, when you were living at Retreat at Twin Lakes, did you come to know a person by the name of George Zimmerman?
A little bit, yes,
Okay. And is that a result of you were a board member, I guess, of the Homeowners Association?
yeah, and he was at a couple of the meetings.
Okay, all right. And so you had met him at a few of the neighborhood association meetings, I
I
guess?
never formally met him, but,
You just knew him from sight?
right,
Okay. And were you aware that he was in charge of the Retreat at Twin Lakes Neighborhood Watch?
I wasn't completely aware of that. I know we were just kind of starting that program up, and I knew he was part of it, but I didn't know who was the head or,
Okay. Do you recall Mr. Zimmerman sending out some emails regarding the Neighborhood Watch?
yes,
Okay. Now, ma'am, regarding the person or persons you heard outside yelling for help, could you identify the person or persons as one of them being George Zimmerman?
I couldn't. I didn't hear him yell like that in the meetings, so.
Okay. If I could have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
When you were there that night and you were hearing what was going on outside, did I understand you to say that the yelling stopped as soon as you heard the gunshot? Is that correct?
Yes,
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Romero.
Thank you. Afternoon, Ms. Lauer.
hi.
Yeah, if you don't mind, thanks. From reviewing your deposition, you're actually out that Sunday, right? I think at your grandfather's 92nd birthday?
Right,
And it was sort of raining the whole day?
Yes,
right? Came back and just hung out at the apartment,
right.
watching TV.
Yep,
And then something caught your attention, and I know you testified to this, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but something caught your attention, correct?
yes.
And as Mr., if I might approach the witness, as Mr. Delabrianda suggested, I want to question you a few questions from where you are. I want to use this map to sort of orient you, and more particularly the jury. We're going to put it behind you.
Okay,
Again, this is where you and your now husband and fiance, Jeremy Weinberg, were living.
right.
When you, and I'm going to just point to you, you're sitting somewhere in this area then, watching TV?
Yes.
Because the TV is sort of maybe here.
A little bit more over here.
Got it. TV's over here, couch and love seat.
Right,
Okay. The first thing that catches your attention, you say, is sort of, I think you said a conversation, correct?
right, or like a loud talking.
And that was out the back and to the left?
Yes,
I think you testified in your deposition that it was sort of by the T intersection?
yes,
Did you mean this when you were talking about the T intersection?
yes,
That's where you first heard the noise?
yes,
And so I think you said it was sort of three-part. I'm going to make up words. These are not the words, but somebody saying something like, I think it was a red car. No, it was a blue car. No, I told you it was a red car. Was it that type of exchange?
yeah, shorter than that, but
Okay, and it was one person saying one thing, another person responding, and then the second person responding again?
I would imagine. I
Something
mean,
like that?
I don't know how many people it
And that's
was.
the
but-
first thing that caught your attention?
Yes,
Okay. And did you hear anything like, what are you following me for?
no,
Did you hear anything like, what are you talking about?
no,
But you did hear voice one, voice two, voice one?
right,
Okay. And that's the first thing that caught your attention?
yes,
And then you said at some point, almost very quickly, you muted the TV,
yes,
and then you heard some scuffling sounds,
right,
almost like movement on grass or the sidewalk, right? And scuffling, you're truly talking about like
shoes, yeah, just like if you were playing basketball on pavement or
Right.
something, that noise that shoes make.
that? Okay. Basketball sneakers?
Or just, yeah, shoes.
Okay. And was it your testimony then that that movement or the sound seemed to move from the T intersection down almost right in front of your, or back of your townhome?
Yes,
Did it seem to you that the noise was moving in that direction?
it was moving that
It
direction.
was.
Yes,
Now, at that point, were you starting the process of calling 911?
yes,
And I think you said that that took in the neighborhood of about 30 seconds to both make the decision to call 911, grab one or two phones, and connect the call.
right.
And of course, we heard the call. The jury can determine exactly how long the screaming was going on for, but did you get a feel, having just listened to it, that it may have lasted, let's say, 45 seconds or so?
I'm really bad with that. I would
That's
have to
okay.
just time it.
It's in evidence, and the jury can listen and time it maybe.
Right,
But in any case, that three-part exchange then became what I think you testified to, was some scuffling and then some yelps, correct?
right,
And those yelps eventually became helps.
yes.
And can you tell us how long those yelps or helps were going on before you connected with 911?
I couldn't tell you an exact time, but I would say there was probably a couple of yelps before it actually connected.
Okay, let's try it this way, knowing that we're talking about some inaccuracies, sort of as a premise. But if in fact it took you precisely 30 seconds to make the decision, to place the call, and to actually connect. So I know it may not have been 30 seconds, but from this conversation, say it was exactly 30 seconds. Can you tell us, was it half the time that there was a yelping or yelling, more than half of those 30 seconds, or less?
I couldn't tell you.
It's okay. But in fact, there was yelping or help being screamed or yelled before you connected with 911, correct?
I'm pretty sure, yes.
Okay, because you've heard the 911 call, and actually the first thing on that call is a yelp or a yell for help, correct?
Right.
So you believe that it may well have been going on before the call was connected?
I believe so, because when she asked me, are they yelling for help the first time, I say I'm not sure, because I was still kind of yelping.
Okay.
And she asked me that pretty soon into the call, so.
Now, you could hear the call, the yelping and then the yells for help even better there that night than we could hear it on the phone just now, right?
Right.
It was much more current and available to you, wasn't it?
Yes.
Much more active.
Yes.
And I presume at that point, when the yelps became screams for help, that you were really paying attention?
Yes.
And you could hear it from both ears, not just from the cell phone?
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like they were in our living room. It was right there.
Would you say that that was sort of a traumatic event that you, in fact, were going through at that point, listening to those screams?
Yeah, I mean, like I told him, we were multitasking and trying to answer questions and...
And it seemed, I think your testimony was, with the person who was yelling for help was in danger
Yes.
and needed help immediately.
Yes.
Did it seem, describe it. We heard it, but since you were there some 30 feet away from it and we can only hear it because cell phone connected to a 911 call connected to a speaker, tell us what it sounded like to you.
It just sounded like they were desperate and whoever it was really needed help or wanted help.
And you, of course, said that you knew it was one person screaming for help, correct?
The yells for help, the voice was the same the whole time.
Okay. You never heard a second voice screaming for help, did you?
No.
Never heard a second voice screaming at all, did you?
The only other voice I heard was John Good when he came out.
Interesting, because Mr. Delaronda questioned you as to other things you didn't hear, so I'm curious. We heard what you heard, the screams for help. Oh, sorry, Your Honor. Not proper for me to say that. You heard on the call, the yells for help. But we didn't hear John Good, though you did. Can you explain that?
I mean, I guess he was far enough away or quieter than the yelling.
So there were things that actually happened in that scene, such as John Good saying to those people out there, whoever it was, what the hell are you doing? Or some
Something
like
like
words.
that. Mm-hmm.
And that was loud enough for you to hear it?
Yes.
But Mr. Delaronda said that you didn't hear someone ask to call the police, did you?
I didn't hear anyone ask to call the police.
So whoever may have said, call the police, you just didn't hear it.
I mean, if they said it, I didn't hear it.
Okay.
Right?
And he also asked you the question, I didn't write it down, you're going to die tonight, motherfucker. Did you hear that?
I didn't hear that.
You're not certainly testifying that it was not said, are you? You're just saying that you didn't hear it.
Right, I didn't hear it.
We talked a moment ago about what you were going through with that event that you witnessed. So, phone call ends with 911, and you're upstairs hiding, aren't you?
Yes.
But a bit of an adrenaline rush that you went through. I don't mean rush in a good way, but just that trauma event that
It
happened
was
sometimes.
surreal. We were kind of just an autopilot.
Yeah. Felt drained afterwards? Did you?
Just a mix of emotions.
When you heard the person say, I have a gun, take my gun, and you said he said it sort of matter-of-factly, right?
Yeah.
The officer was there by then, the police officer?
I'm not sure. I don't know who they were saying that to.
Oh, okay. Did that seem to you as though the person who you now know had just shot somebody, that matter-of-fact way was some indication to you as you heard it that he just didn't care that he had just shot someone? Or
I took it just as, the police, if he was talking to police, it was, I have a gun so that they know he has a gun.
Okay. So that didn't cause you any, you didn't think, oh my God, there's somebody who, obviously the one with the gun just shot somebody and doesn't seem to care at all about the fact that he just shot him.
I would have been more concerned if they had just run off.
Okay. Let me show you, if I might, this is already in evidence. My understanding is that, I'm going to fast forward for a second and then come back and go through it slower. Well, I'll tell you what, wait on that for a second. So, everything then sort of ends, and at some point the police do come, correct? And you came down from upstairs?
Right.
Went outside and talked to some police officers?
Yes.
Okay. And actually, one of the officers came up to you, didn't they, and asked you to identify the identified person at that point as the person who had shot the other person?
We walked up to them. They were roping things off.
Okay. And one of the officers asked you to ID the guy, didn't he?
He asked if we had known either one of
Okay.
the people involved.
And he told you at one point he wanted you to identify the guy who had the gun, correct?
Right.
And what was your response?
I said I didn't want to go over and let him see me, so I wanted him to just take a picture of him and bring it over for me to look at.
And did they do that?
Yes.
And I think this is 45. This is why, in fact, we have this picture,
Right.
isn't it?
Yes.
This is the picture that Officer Wagner took at your request, right?
Yes.
And you looked at this that night on his cell phone?
Yes.
And what did you say when you first looked at it?
I said I didn't know who it was.
Because even though you knew George Zimmerman from seeing him in a few meetings, you couldn't tell?
No, he didn't look the same.
Why not?
I just didn't recognize him, and I mean, obviously, there's a lot going on there, but the woman behind me said, oh, that's my neighbor.
Objection, hearsay?
Now you know that's George Zimmerman, though, don't you?
Yes.
Mr. DeLoiana asked you some questions about the neighborhood, and it's still up on the screen. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
All right, I think we're okay for right now. Thank you, though, Your Honor. This is, in fact, your neighborhood, correct?
Yes.
The top middle is the main entrance, is it not?
Yes.
And if you went around, sort of Retreat View Circle counterclockwise till about the 9 o'clock area, that's where that green belt area is.
Yes.
What's just beyond that? Do you know? Just off the screen to the left. Is that another apartment complex?
Yes.
Being on the homeowners association, did you guys have some problems with open areas being easy areas of access for people who were not residents?
There was a lot of people that would walk through there, whether they were residents or not. I don't know if they were just...
And the homeowners association had some concerns about that, didn't they?
Yes.
Matter of fact, they ended up putting up gates and fences all along that area to the left, didn't they?
Yes.
To try and minimize the intrusion from people who didn't live there?
Yes.
It's not going to work. I might, yeah, I'm going to zoom it in if I can figure out your...
Here, I can show you.
Sure, that'd be great.
What
Just
part?
including the front.
Huh?
The front and side of her complex. No, I'm sorry, the front and side of her apartment.
Oh, you want smaller than this?
That'll work.
Is that- will that
Thanks
work?
very much. I appreciate the help. Are you oriented now to where we are?
Yes.
Okay. That truck, that I guess is your husband's truck right there in the picture?
Yes.
Where's the nearest street sign?
I guess either at the other end of that or at the beginning of that road.
Let me ask it this way. Is there a street sign anywhere near the front of where you used to live?
No.
Is there a street sign anywhere near if you would go out your front door? So now your front door, if we go past the truck and we're walking down that street, is there a street sign anywhere on that street?
No.
Is there a street sign even anywhere until you make that right-hand turn and get all the way to that corner?
It's on the corner there, yeah.
Okay. Now, if you were to take a left out of your driveway so that your husband's truck there is on your right and you come down towards the bottom, there's no street sign there either, is there?
No.
And I think you identified that though you had numbers on your house, that they were obstructed either by a bush or by just not knowing where they were?
They're not always obstructed. I just said you couldn't see them from every angle.
And what was the lighting like that night?
It was dark. The sidewalk, that is and by now I'm talking about the sidewalk, both the one leading from just in front of your husband's truck, back around, and then also including what we identified as a T intersection. Is that concrete? Yes.
It's regular hard cement?
Yes.
You said that it was difficult for you to identify that screaming voice as that of George Zimmerman, correct?
Yeah, I couldn't tell whose voice that was.
Yeah. Have you ever heard George Zimmerman scream like the person was screaming that night?
Never.
Would you consider those screams to be life-threatening screams?
Yes.
Did it seem that there were the screams of somebody who was getting beat up?
They were being hurt somehow, yes.
Maybe somebody who was having this done to them?
It's possible.
Have you ever seen this picture before?
Yes.
Could those screams have come from somebody who was having this done to them?
Speculation.
Should I answer?
Oh, well, I'm thinking about it. You would need some kind of, it's speculation unless she has heard those situations before, I would guess.
Understood, Your Honor. I'll withdraw the question. In your conversations and the little interaction you have with Mr. Zimmerman, did he ever seem or come across to you to be angry,
No.
upset, what we might call a hothead?
No.
Any concerns at all that his involvement with Neighborhood Watch was unusual,
No.
inappropriate?
No.
Some type of, I want to be a vigilante, so I'm going to go start a Neighborhood Watch kind of guy?
No.
Think he was acting appropriately in his interactions with other community members?
Yeah.
You think that his involvement with Neighborhood Watch was just also to help further benefit the community?
Yes.
I might have a moment, Your Honor. was a point, I think you testified to earlier, that your then fiance, Jeremy, was going to do something to try and see what was going on outside. Can you go back over that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess his first instinct was to get the closest kind of weapon he could find and then go out the front door, because he didn't just want to go out to where it seemed like it was right out our back door.
Okay, and then, so he actually did arm himself with a knife, and was it the gunshot that stopped him from continuing that?
He never did find a knife because he doesn't know where they're at.
This is, you know this is being televised, right? So
Yes.
Just embarrassed him on national TV. Okay, but he was trying to help
Right.
and just didn't get there in time?
Well, by the time, if he had found one even, it was right around the same time that the gun went off. And
In your apartment, we talked about the porch area, having the screened enclosure, and also the shades were down as well. So you really couldn't see anything, correct?
nothing.
But you could just hear what we've now had you testify to.
Right.
And when you went upstairs, do you guys have a balcony or anything that is upstairs looking out over this scene?
Yes.
Did you ever go out on that?
No.
Did you, by the time you got upstairs, had the shot already occurred?
Yes.
Did you guys just, let me ask you this way, I guess, why didn't you look out at the scene from the balcony?
I don't know. I guess I'm smarter than that. I'm not going to go look where the gun just went off. I mean.
That's great. Thanks for the time. No further questions from us.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Ma'am, let me refer you back to State's Exhibit Number 1. Yes, Your Honor, if we could. You see it there?
Yes.
Mr. O'Mara asked you about that there is a neighborhood next to it. I'm kind of pointing in that area, that direction. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did I understand you correctly to say that there was apparently a part of it that was not gated? Is that correct?
Right. There was no gate over there.
And did I understand you correctly on cross-examination to say that that was used by also residents as a cut-through? Is that correct?
Well, he said something about non-residents, but I'm sure it was used by both. I don't know.
By residents too?
I would imagine. I'm not sure though.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. I don't think I need anything else with the lights. You were asked about the sequence when you first heard something about there. And I think Mr. O'Mara asked you 1-2-1 in terms of, he mentioned red car or something, whatever the person was said. Can you say it was the same person that first said something and it was the third, or are you the exchange? Can you say one way or the other?
No, I can't.
And you could not make out who even those two persons were, assuming it was two people, correct?
Right.
In terms of whatever struggle or scuffling or whatever started, can you say where it started other than when you first heard it? You can only talk about when you first heard it, is that correct?
I can only tell you what I heard.
Right. You don't know where it started. You're not here to say it started right at the T, like you said.
Yeah, I can only tell you what I heard.
Right. And I think Mr. O'Mara asked you about the, before you actually got through to the 911 operator that you heard, and I think you stated you heard a couple of helps, correct? Is that, you said two?
Yelps.
Yelps, I'm sorry, yelps. Okay. That walkway, dogway, whatever we're going to call it, concrete, that is used for, kids use that out there too, do they not?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to have a dog to walk on there. Everyone uses that.
I mean, do kids play on that? It's like a sidewalk that kids, I'm assuming, play on bicycles or on roller skates or whatever. I mean, is that used not just for people who walk dogs?
Right, for everyone.
Okay. And Mr. O'Mara asked you about the screaming. You felt, I guess, based on what you observed, that you were life-threatening, correct?
Yes.
But you don't know who was being attacked or who was not, correct?
No.
You can't say it was Mr. Zimmerman or Trayvon Martin who was screaming for help.
Yeah, we couldn't see anything.
You couldn't say it was Mr. Martin yelling for help because Mr. Zimmerman had a gun and he was yelling, help, help, help. You can't say whether it was or not.
Can't say either way.
And Your Honor, I do have a matter that I would like to proffer. We can either approach the bench, but I think it deals with a matter that was asked on cross-examination.
Okay. We need to wait for paper change. Thank you. You may proceed. This is a proffer.
Ma'am, you were asked by Mr. O'Mara in terms of your knowledge of Mr. Zimmerman. And I believe you stated that you've never seen him.
Let me object. I know it's a proffer, but I did not ask reputation, so we're very clear. I asked for personal experience, and that's a huge difference for where he's.
Okay, I understand that, but please let me hear the rest of the question, and then we'll hear your.
So he just used the word reputation. And I
Okay,
went on autopilot.
thank you. If you'll rephrase your question, please.
Ms. Lauer, Mr. O'Mara asked you about whether your knowledge of Mr. Zimmerman, whether you had ever seen, or whatever words you used to say, never angry, and he wasn't a hothead, and never seen him upset. Is that correct? You recall?
Never.
I apologize. Never seen him upset. You recall being asked those questions?
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware that Mr. Zimmerman had before been angry and upset with a woman that he beat up, that he used to, was his girlfriend?
I object, Your Honor. I should let him finish. I'm sorry.
Did you finish your question?
I just heard an objection, so I stopped.
Okay, well, go ahead and ask your question, and then I'll wait for the objection.
You have knowledge as to Mr. Zimmerman, the fact that he had previously had a temporary restraining order against him by a woman he lived with that he beat up.
Now, we object, Your Honor, because that's a mischaracterization of evidence and testimony. And I guess she can say what she wants, but he can't argue, for example, that he's a terrorist, and she can agree. That is a mischaracterization of any evidence that they have, and I would object on that basis. It needs to be an accurate representation of what
Okay,
happened.
if you'll please rephrase your question.
Are you aware that a woman, his girlfriend at the time, got a restraining order against the defendant for the way he treated her?
Was I aware back in 2012?
I'm sorry, hold on 1 second. I apologize. Go ahead. Were you aware, in terms of Mr. Zimmerman's prior incident involving a restraining order that was obtained by a girl that he was dating? His
Was I
girlfriend?
aware when?
At any time?
I'm aware of it now.
Okay. Were you aware of it at the time? You testified now as to your knowledge of Mr. Zimmerman never being angry, not being a hothead, and never being upset. Right now, you stated that. So my question is, are you aware that he did have a restraining order against him by a former girlfriend for violence against her?
I was under the impression he was asking if I'd ever seen him have a bad temper, be in a bad mood.
My question, ma'am, are you aware that the fact he has a restraining order, or had a restraining order against him for violence against his girlfriend?
Yes.
Okay. Were you also aware that he had been arrested for a battery on a law enforcement officer at a bar?
Yes.
Okay. And were you aware of the specific circumstances related to that man?
No.
Okay, you were just aware that he'd been arrested for a battery on law
I
enforcement?
heard it on the news before, but yeah.
Okay. Your Honor, that is in terms of establishing a proffer, that's what I would like to be able to ask this witness. We believe, well, I don't want to make the argument that I made to the bench already.
I might respond with questions as to the proffer.
Yes, you may.
Were you aware that the domestic violence injunction was actually a mutual one? He got one against her, she got one against him. Were you aware of that?
I did hear that, yes.
Okay, and that they were both dismissed?
I don't believe I heard that.
Okay. And were you aware that in the case where he was charged with battery on a law enforcement officer for going to the aid of an underage buddy of his who was sort of accosted by ATF agents, that case was dropped to a misdemeanor? Were you aware of that?
I didn't know the specifics.
Okay. And having been dropped to a misdemeanor, it then went into pretrial diversion program. Were you aware of that?
No.
And then having gone successfully through the pretrial diversion program, that the charges were completely dismissed back in, I think it was 2005. Were you aware of that?
No.
Nothing further.
Thank you.
Your Honor,
We're going to have to have argument. Go ahead.
yes,
You have more questions?
I was just going to ask that this witness just remain subject to recall regarding this subject matter, and I'd like to be able to present case law and argument to the court, and I can even provide more specifics about both of those incidents. That's why I asked to proffer it, so that obviously it's done in front of the jury. Our position, but I don't want to make the whole argument here, but our position is that...
Do you not want to make the argument now and have the witness remain for recall, or...
In fairness to the court, since I know that I wasn't expecting it, I want to be able to provide the case law to the court, and I don't want to hold up
Well, I'm sure the
matters.
defense wants to be able to do so also. So we can release Ms. Lauer for now, subject to being recalled?
That, I do have one other matter. Yes, Your Honor, I would like to have one other matter, and I don't want to also, this matter does not deal with the subject matter we're talking about. I want to be able to ask her outside the presence of the jury.
You may proffer again.
Ma'am, do you by chance, in terms of do you follow Mr. Zimmerman's brother on Twitter?
No.
Have you ever responded to any of his tweets or twits or whatever they call those things?
Let me object on grounds of relevancy.
Well, it's...
Even within a proffer, I think they just can't. My objection is on grounds of relevancy.
Overruled.
You've never followed him on Twitter or tweet or anything?
Not
like
that I know of. I hardly...
How about on Facebook?
I don't believe so.
The reason I ask is because, and I can, may I approach the witness, Your Honor?
May I see it?
And I'll be glad to show it to you. This one.
Can counsel approach for just one moment?